Last Friday, I discussed about Tripitaka, but I remembered one item I did not discuss, the last item. The fourth Buddhist Council. I mentioned about the first council 3 months after passing away of the Buddha. Second council 100 years after his passing away. Third council 200 years after his passing away. Then I mentioned about the Mahayana Buddhist Council which they held in Kashmir nearly 700 years after the passing away of the Buddha. But before that, the fourth council was held in Sri Lanka. That is 80 BC, 80 years before Christ. And after that council, the whole Tripitaka, the teachings of the Buddha, have been recorded in writing. Before that, there was no written record. They maintained in memory from teacher to disciples. So many hundreds or few thousands, we do not know how they maintain. They have divided into different sections to memorize. Then taught their disciples, though carried out for nearly 500 years without any written record. Then after this council that they held in Sri Lanka, they have decided to record because there was a very big famine, disaster for nearly 12 years. Then many of those scholar monks could manage to escape. They have gone to India and some other countries, and after that they have returned to their own country and decided, if we are not going to record in writing, later the original teachings may disappear. Then they decided to hold this fourth council, then started writing. So that is the first time in history the teachings of the Buddha was recorded. Then what happened in India? There were so many political upheavals and certain enemies of Buddhism like Brahmins and some others who could not tolerate Buddhism destroyed the temples and the monasteries, and they have massacred thousands and thousands of monks. Then foreign invaders destroyed libraries and all the sacred places. So whatever they have written in India in Sanskrit but not in Pali disappeared. And before that, they have introduced Buddhism to China. That is in the 1st century. 3 Indian Buddhist scholars visited China, studied Chinese language, and those Chinese scholars to translate the text into Chinese, Sanskrit, but not in Pali. Bodhidharma, Kumarajiva, Kasyapa Matanga, they are the well-known Indian Buddhist scholars who studied Chinese language and supported the Chinese scholars to translate. So the translations are available, but the original Sanskrit text completely disappeared from India. And later, certain scholars who have visited Tibet found out one or two original books written in Sanskrit. Because Buddhism was introduced to Tibet, I think about 1,500 years ago, not earlier. They have translated into Tibetan language, but the original Sanskrit books also they have found out one or two. Then from China to Korea, from Korea to Japan, translated into their original language. When I visited one temple in Korea, I found out they have engraved the whole Tripitaka in Korean language, the marble slab. And I think all of you know, those who have visited Burma, also engraved in marble slab in the Pali language. So this Pali Tripitaka, first time recorded in Sri Lanka. When Buddhism was introduced to Thailand and Burma and other countries, they had to get all the original texts from Sri Lanka. Even India, where Buddhism was originated, also had to depend on Sri Lanka to find out the original teaching. Now the argument here, how can we prove that Tripitaka or the Pali Tripitaka is the original teaching? Well, historians and research workers, those who have studied the development of Buddhism and history of Buddhism, found out there is no any other earlier records for us to introduce as the original teachings of the Buddha beside the Pali Tripitaka. That last Friday I could not mention that. Tonight, the last item in the part 1. What sort of freedom do Buddhists experience which is not enjoyed by followers of other religions? This is also a very interesting subject for us to understand why people appreciate Buddhism, especially in the West, because of this freedom. And they have given a new introduction to this religion. They say Buddhism is a religion of freedom and reason. Because they have found out in many other religions, the followers were not given enough freedom to think. They have their own a ready-made religious concept, belief, and they believe most of them are dogmatic ideas. Because their interpretation is the basic teachings or the commandments or the precepts were given by the God, came down from heaven, not discovered by human beings. So Buddhism is the only religion which teaches us that this doctrine or this religion was discovered by a human being, not by a God. That is why they want to know. Then the reason is, when we depend on their ready-made concept and belief, we have no ground to doubt, although we cannot agree whether right or wrong, whether we can agree or not, we have to accept. But Buddhism never adopted this attitude. From the very beginning, the Buddha has given this freedom for us to think. So this is the only religion which encourages people to think. That is why people say this is a religion of freedom. So according to our observation, when we use our common sense, we can understand how religion was originated. The concept of religion. First, human beings started religion because of their fear and suspicion or some sort of insecurity feeling. That is the basis. Later, according to their experience and the development of human mind, they have introduced certain principles. This is called humanism. That means to live as understanding, cultured human beings by observing certain principles, because they knew that killing and destroying and stealing and sexual misconduct and telling lies and cruelty, cunningness and all those things are bad. They realize. Then they have introduced these things as religious principles. On the other hand, they also experienced the uniqueness or the beauty of kindness, honesty, sincerity, understanding, cooperation. Then they build up this as humanism. That is their religion at that time. But they never introduced this principle as a divine message, human experience. Later, when they developed this concept, they thought simply by introducing as humanism people never pay attention, never take seriously. The only idea or only method is to convey this as a message given by the God. Then people pay more attention. So they imbue their experience into that humanism. Then the religion was originated in that way. Before that, there was no such thing as divine message. I can give you another example. After his enlightenment, when the Buddha wanted to tell others what he realized, he found out people's minds were clouded and deluded, and they maintain all sorts of superstitious ideas, and ignorance is very, very grave, deeply rooted into their mind. Therefore, it is very difficult for people to understand this doctrine, this Dharma. So when he was thinking in this way, Mahabrahma, at that time, Mahabrahma means Creator God, appeared and requested an appeal. Please don't think in this way. There are at least few people in this world who can understand. Please reveal this Dhamma to others. So at his request, the Buddha decided to preach. Here again, where we have narrated this story to influence all those who believe in Brahma, the Creator God, that their Creator God approached the Buddha and requested him to preach. Then people started to pay more attention. There are similar incidents. And these incidents also related to the idea that I mentioned just now. Then, the Buddha's idea was to give due credit to man's intelligence. Because there are people by nature, by birth, some sort of intelligence, intrinsic intelligence, inherited in them. They can understand. But others experience a lot of problems and difficulties to understand the truth. Take time. Now, when people started to come here and listen to these religious talks and started to read religious books, after spending for a few years, they come and revealed to us what sort of ideas they had earlier before they started to listen to this Dhamma talk and read religious books. That means take time to withdraw certain beliefs, certain ideas that we had about our life and hereafter, or this world, or the heaven, or hell. take time. So when you study the 45 years teaching, how the Buddha has started. First thing, he never regarded us as very unfortunate sinners. Everybody must go through him to find out their salvation. There is no such thing. He told us very clearly, you make mistake, you maintain superstitious ideas or wrong ideas in your mind because of your ignorance. So there is no reason for us to condemn you as sinners. In fact, there are no such ready-made sinners in this world. Almost every day we commit sins. Every minute we commit sins through our thoughts, words, and action. So it is not germinated at the beginning, but every day we are sinning. This is the Buddhist concept of sinners. And this idea, I think they have introduced for one reason, for one purpose. Only for conversion. You are sinners. You must be baptized. Otherwise you have no chance to go to heaven. That is the origin of this concept of sinners. And some people still believe if they could not do that earlier, even at the dying moment before his or her death, must be baptized, then can go to heaven. After listening to the Dhamma, after learning, and they are tempted and misled by others, don't worry. If you believe in God, at the last moment, definitely you can go to heaven. Use your common sense without depending on anything. Throughout our lifetime, we are going on accumulating good and bad karmas. No one can escape. Bad people also accumulate lot of good karma. Good people also commit bad karma. This is natural. So all these karmic thoughts, karmic seeds are deposited in our subconscious mind. So when we use our common sense, I really cannot understand how a person can wash away all the evil deeds and bad karmas that he has committed during his lifetime, and at the last moment accepting something else or believe something else and get the chance to go to heaven. I really cannot understand. If it is possible, there is nothing for us to worry about the precept and morals and ethics and this and that. Do anything whatever you like. And before your death, say, I believe in God, then you go to heaven. Very easy. People never use their common sense. So the Buddha never introduced this kind of method just to bluff people in simple language. So what he wanted was to point out our weaknesses and to point out our talents, our intelligence. We have our hidden intelligence covered by our ignorance. So Buddhism tries to remove this ignorance, then the hidden potential intelligence get the chance to work. At the moment, so many misconceptions and ignorance interrupt your intelligence. You are bound to observe so many things although you don't believe. You try to justify them. Oh, this is our tradition. This is our custom. This is our way of life. If there is no truth in your action or in your belief, that type of justification never paved the way for you to understand things properly. The Buddha is the only teacher who taught us not to accept anything what he taught, thinking that the Buddha is a great man. Can you imagine the nature of the Buddha? But all the other religious teachers says, you must accept, you must obey, you must follow. They are religious concepts, otherwise you will be punished. Now see the difference now. You cannot doubt according to them. But the Buddha says you must doubt, otherwise you never realize. Take for instance, you can say, you are Buddhist. You were born in Buddhist families. This is your cultural, traditional heritage. Religion is your heritage. But according to the Buddha, you should not think in that way. You have to think. Unless that realization appears in your mind, you cannot experience the good effect, good result. You maintain as a belief. Simple example, you believe in rebirth because your religion says. But you do not know whether it is right or wrong. And you do not know whether it really works or not. And you do not know how rebirth can take place. Just maintain as a belief. According to the Buddha, that belief is not enough. You must have enough reasons to justify, to support your concept, your belief. Then you gain confidence. Yes, it is true. Now how many people can justify? Because we have more than enough reasons to understand that it is true. Simply by maintaining that belief, we won't be able to understand what it is. And this is the Buddha's way of teaching. Again, he never tried to introduce a religious way of life, people to come and accept this religion by illustrating or creating some sort of temptation in your mind, only talking about heaven or paradise. This is another difference. All the others talk about heaven or paradise. Buddhism also talk about heaven. But in the end, the Buddha says, you should not accept heaven as everlasting final goal. This so-called heaven or paradise is also subject to this universal law of impermanence. This is the difference. In other words, we should not be crazy about heaven. That is not the ultimate aim of Buddhism. We have to go beyond this mundane or worldly condition in order to experience or to gain final goal. Again, the Buddha or the Buddhist missionaries never tried to frighten people, create fear in their mind, simply by talking about hellfire. If you don't accept this religion, if you don't follow these commandments or principles or precepts, you have no other choice. You will have to experience the eternal hellfire. This is another method that they have adopted to introduce their religion by creating fear. Buddhism has never done this. Buddhism says, in simple language, if you do good thing, here within this lifetime also you experience good result, and hereafter also. If you do bad thing, by nature, you may experience the bad effect within this life and hereafter also. But these karmic results, karmic effects are changeable. That means, by realizing the danger of evil deeds that you have committed, later by cultivating more and more deeds and developing your understanding, certain virtues in your mind, then you will be able to overcome. This is the Buddhist method. Again, another unique interpretation. All the other existing religions in India at that time also believe karma. This is a new doctrine. But their interpretation is, if we have committed bad karma, under any circumstances, you won't be able to overcome, escape from the bad effect. The Buddha has given another interpretation. He said, you should not surrender yourself to your own karma. If you keep quiet, yes, naturally you had to surrender. But still you can use your effort, your intelligence, your understanding. By using all those things, you will be able to overcome the bad effect of your own heart. The Buddha was the only one who taught like this. Then, good karma also that you have accumulated. You won't be able to experience good result automatically. You have to use your common sense, your understanding to experience the result. So he has given due credit to our knowledge and understanding. How we can utilize our understanding and our intelligence even to change the karmic effect without asking somebody else to come and change our karmic effect. So now you can understand what sort of freedom we experience. Again he says, don't depend on your holy book, your religious book. Just now I have mentioned how the disciples of the Buddha maintained and started to record. And in many other countries also they have translated into their own language. Then, from time to time, different schools of Buddhism interpreted the same teaching in different ways. There may be many distortions, misinterpretations. That is why the Buddha says, don't depend on the book just to say, oh, it is in our holy book. Again, he has given credit to our sense of reason. The method introduced by Buddha is this. If you cannot understand, if you cannot agree with certain sayings or the statements in your religious book, then you have to go and discuss this matter with your religious teachers whom you can trust. Don't create your own imagination. Discuss this matter with a learned religious teacher. Before that, he says, if you cannot agree, the original text, the commentaries and sub-commentaries are there. That means, from time to time, many of those scholar monks have written commentaries. Commentaries means interpretation to many of those terminologies, technical terms, which people cannot understand. Then refer to the commentary. How this commentary explains this word, the meaning, without creating your own imagination. Still you cannot understand, or you cannot rely on this interpretation. Then go and discuss with your teacher. After discussing this matter, you experience that still you cannot satisfy. Then he says, this is the time for you to use your own common sense. First you read the original text. After that you read the commentaries. Then you discuss this matter with your teachers. By considering all these things, you must come to your own conclusion. Again, he has given us that freedom to understand things. by using our common sense. So under any circumstances, we are not going to become slaves to this religion. We practice with understanding. Now if you say, it is forbidden, or according to our religion, we cannot do this, that saying is wrong. Because others use this statement. According to our holy book, according to our religion, we are forbidden. We cannot do this. Buddhists cannot say like this. Instead of saying like this, you have to say, according to our religion, we can understand why it is wrong. Now see the difference now. According to our religion, we can understand why it is correct. But you must have reasons. So blindly, you should not refer to your holy books or your religion or Buddha. Simply, or Buddha says, we should not kill. It's a small children's language. As if that you cannot understand why killing is wrong. Is it necessary for Buddha to tell you why killing is wrong? Can't you understand why it is wrong? Buddha also mentioned this. If you cannot understand why killing is bad, then your own experience is more than enough. What is this? When another person come and try to kill you, think how you feel at that time. So religious books are not important for you to understand why it is bad. The Buddha or God is not important, you can understand. If not, if you cannot understand why stealing and swindling and robbing, all these things are wrong, then see how you feel when others come and take away all your belongings, your valuable things. How do you feel? And that is what I told you earlier. How people started to introduce this religion according to their experience, and not necessary for us to wait until this information come down from heaven to understand what is right and what is wrong. All the good and bad things we can understand according to our own experience. Therefore, not necessary for you to tell, according to Buddhism, we cannot do this, or we cannot eat this. You must give your own reason why it is right or it is wrong. Your own choice. From the very beginning up to the end, full freedom is there in Buddhism. Now let us take another aspect. Day-to-day life, from our birth up to our grave, what sort of freedom we experience? Others say we are sinners. Therefore, after our birth, must be baptized to wash away the sins. Buddhism never says we are sinners, and there is no such thing in this religion as baptized. But usually, people bring their babies to the temple or places of worship for blessing, not because they are sinners. That blessing gives more confidence and hopes and protections and so many things. It is very important, but not compulsory. There is no such law. In Buddhism, you must bring your child and get this blessing, otherwise this child go to hell. It is your own choice. After that, when you attain the age of your marriage, many religions says, you must get married. God has created man and woman in this world to produce children. That is their mission. They were created for this purpose. If you want to get married, religion also never say, no, you cannot get married. So that freedom is there. It is up to you. Then, after your marriage, some religions say you must produce children, otherwise your marriage become a failure. Buddhism never say you must produce children. It is up to you. When they come to family planning, still it is a losing battle. But Buddhism directly says you can take any precaution, any measure to avoid conception. There is nothing to go against with the Buddha's teaching. But many others say, no, you cannot. You go against the God wish. You cannot stop. You cannot adapt any artificial method. Now another problem is test tube babies. Still there are some religions that say you cannot. You go against the will of God. If a lady is very unfortunate to produce babies, that is some sort of curse of the God. So by force you should not change this will of God. I told you here again, this juncture where we can merge Buddhism. The Buddha says you can topple your karmic effect by using your intelligence and wisdom and effort. And as Buddhist, you can say, yes, this lady cannot bear children. She might have done very bad karma during her previous birth. There is no difference between that will of God and this karma, say. That is why again the Buddha, if you use your effort, you can overcome the karmic effect. Today, scientists have discovered so many things in this world. And religionists are still fighting with them, saying it is against the God. Buddhism has no such problem because of this freedom. Always give credit to man's intelligence. That is why many people keep away from all these religions, saying religions hinders man's progress, man's freedom. But Buddhism is not included under this category. Always encourage to use their freedom, but reasonable way, not in childish way. Then some religions say you can have only one wife. You cannot have two. Some others say no, you can have 3 or 4, so no harm. And some religions say you cannot have even one. complete celibacy. Now see the difference now. Buddhism says, if you want to get married, it is up to you. Religions never interrupt or never interfere. If you don't like to get married, it is up to you. Religion never says you must get married. Then, regarding the number of wives, Buddhism has not mentioned anything. But in his teaching here and there you can see, especially in Parabhava Sutta, Sehi dare hasantutto vesya supadissati dissati paradaresu tang parabhavato mukhang. The various causes of the downfall of man, Buddha has pointed out. This is one of them. Gambling, drinking, and going after other women and this and that. So a very big list. But not as a religious law. It is not a religious law. Make you to understand what sort of troubles, problems, miseries, difficulties you had to experience if you increase the number of your wives. Bluffing here, bluffing there. Throughout their lifetime they bluff. And after the death also, how many are there to curse? And what sort of enjoyment man experience we really cannot understand. So he has given all these advices for you to understand the difficulties, problems, worries, responsibilities. Again, freedom. If you are ready to face all these problems and difficulties, it's up to you. Religion cannot make a law regarding this. Then some other religions say, after your marriage, you must have a son. If your first wife cannot produce son, then you can have another wife, until you get a son. Buddhism never says, never discriminate the difference between son and daughter. Because they believe after the father's death, only son can relieve the departed father's soul by performing religious rites and rituals and ceremonies. A daughter cannot do that. Because their belief is the half of the departed father's soul is in the son, but not in the daughter. That is how they started to use this surname as family name. Only father's name, but not mother's name. But in certain countries, I understand in France, is it true? In France, they use mother's family name. Maybe those days, in France. Because of that belief. But Buddhism never differentiates. There may be some other countries there. Then, attitude towards women. Many of those religions that existed before and during the Buddha's time and even today still discriminate women. Women were not given equal status when they come to practice religion. In many religions, when they go to pray, even the places of worship, they must be separated from the men. Cannot mix up. That means no freedom. Discriminate. If not, they must cover their face. If their purpose is to go and pray, in that place of worship, why do they want to look at women's face? Is it necessary to close their face? What is the big idea? Buddhism, now you can see here, all mixed up. There is no such rule. Women must be this side and men only this side. No, you can. Whenever we perform any religious service, we never discriminate. Equal right. Then the belief that people had, the women are very unfortunate, completely wiped out by the Buddha. Before that, in the history, religious history, we cannot single out any other religious teacher who has given this freedom to women. And the belief that they had, the women cannot attain sainthood. Also broken, refuted, because they were not given this chance earlier. So many of those ladies who had the chance to renounce their life after practicing this religion, meditation, developing their mind, they too attained sainthood. And so-called advanced religions, even today, fighting against the women, even the Western countries, to give full freedom for those nuns to perform religious rites, even in the West, are still not given full freedom. But in Buddhism, there is no restriction. Nuns are at liberty to perform their religious rites, to bless the devotees, to perform funeral rites and blessings and this and that. But in many other religions, ladies are not allowed to do this. Then after our death, another big battle. Some religionists say must be buried, cannot burn. Some others say must be cremated, cannot bury. And there is another group, neither burial nor cremation. Now 3 groups. what is the Buddhist attitude? You cannot find even one word uttered by Buddha regarding this. According to your convenience, you can arrange either burial or cremation. No restriction whatsoever. In certain countries, no more lands, not available for burial. Then how are they going to follow the same religious principle forever? In certain places I have noticed, when people come to know that this person belonged to another religion, and mistakenly he was buried in somebody else's cemetery, belonged to another religion. After a few days' time, they go and execute and dig out and rebury in their graveyard, saying that otherwise that person cannot go to heaven, must go through their cemetery. This is the nature of religion. There was a very liberal-minded Christian in France, and he has violated, revolutionized many of those traditional superstitious ideas and dogmas in Christianity. But he was a Christian. After his death, Catholic Church, they cannot use their Catholic cemetery because he has violated many of those Christian principles. Not allowed to bury in the Catholic cemetery. So they had to bury the common cemetery, belong to everybody. After a few years' time, I think about 10 years' time, if I am not mistaken, thousands and thousands of people gathered because they came to know that this man is a wonderful, brilliant man who has pointed out so many weaknesses in religion. By realizing this, they gathered few thousand and threatened the church. You must rebury in the church what you call the graveyard, belong to the church. Church had to surrender and allow them to rebury in the same graveyard. And these are the important issues they use as very important religious issues. Recently there was a case here. A man, was a Chinese. Even his family members also never knew that he has changed his religion. Some people believe he is a Christian. Many others believe he is a Buddhist. But after his death, they found out he has become a Muslim. Now all their relatives and friends are divided into three groups now. One group say we must have Christian burial. Others say we must have Buddhist rite. And others say no, he was a Muslim, must be buried in the Muslim cemetery. Then somebody came to see me to find out what is our Buddhist attitude. Now a big fight is going on. What is our Buddhist attitude? Then I told, Buddhist attitude is like this, that we never fight for dead bodies. Allow them to do anything whatever they like. After all, it is a dead body. This is the Buddhist attitude. Because we never maintain any belief that simply allowing these people to bury him in the Christian cemetery or Muslim cemetery and change his own karma that he has accumulated. This is only dead body. This is called freedom. So when we consider from our birth up to the grave, what sort of freedom we experience? Again, our food. Of course, there are some who like to observe vegetarianism. When this matter was discussed during the Buddha, he also gave the same answer. I don't want to make any restriction. It is up to the followers either to become vegetarians or non-vegetarian. They must have that freedom. Again, freedom. Some others say, according to our religion, we cannot eat this particular meat or fish. But you cannot find in the Buddha's teaching anywhere that mention that Buddhists cannot eat that particular meat or fish. Meat is meat, fish is fish. Take as food. This is the Buddhist. But you have to follow your own tradition. You understand? Not to disturb others' feelings. You understand this? Now take for instance, in your family, all are non-vegetarian. And one of you want to become a very strict vegetarian. And that attitude can become real nuisance to all your family members. Don't go to such extreme. This is another advice given by the Buddha. You have to use your common sense when you are going to observe certain things. If it is not cruel or harmful or dangerous or immoral, you should not stick to it strongly. This is another advice. We refer to Kalama Sutta. The Buddha says, certain traditions and customs you should not follow, thinking this is our tradition and this is our custom. On the other hand, you should not throw them away, violate, thinking this is an old fashion, out of date. Don't think in that way. You have to study, consider very carefully whether there is any significance, any value in this tradition. See the advice given by them. Then, not to depend on religious teacher who taught all those things. If we accept all these things, thinking the Buddha is an enlightened great man, you never realize anything. Just depending on Buddha, you accept no realization. If not, by depending on holy books, very accurate, no distortion, we accept what is written in the book. That is not a good attitude, according to the Buddha. You must try to understand whether it is right or wrong. Then he comes to this traditions and customs and cultural practices. Don't depend on them to justify. This is our tradition. If that tradition is wrong and nuisance, you can get rid of it. If there is any meaningful and significance, useful method, services also that you can render through your tradition and custom, uphold. Don't give up. Whether it is new or old, makes no difference. So I have given so many reasons now. What sort of freedom we experience? On the other hand, the freedom given by the Buddha, misused, abused by many people. That is why we can see different forms of Buddhism. The Buddha did not make rules or religious laws. If we introduce religion as a law, we cannot regard this as a religion. It is not a religion. Because religion is a free choice, not a law. Because of fear of that punishment come through that law, you accept this religion, but no understanding. So you cannot find a religious punishment in Buddhism. Buddhism says good and bad effect naturally you experience. But religion cannot enforce law to punish you. Then automatically it will become a law. The name of religion may disappear. So religion is not a law. It is a free choice we accept according to our own conviction, our understanding. This is the attitude of a religion. So now you can understand what sort of freedom you have. But don't abuse, don't misuse. Make use of this freedom with understanding by using your common sense. In the West, Buddhism is spreading very rapidly. There are no Buddhist missionaries, no monks, no publications also, no religious education. After reading one or two books, or after listening to one or two talks, they found out there is something here in this religion which they have never heard earlier. So, very easily they can understand and appreciate this attitude because all over the world, human beings are fighting for their freedom. If religion is going to arrest this freedom, people do away with religion. So we should not use religion as a law, but educate people, train their mind to understand what is right and what is wrong. This is the duty of a religion. Without doing this, through bribery and corruptions and favoritism and punishing and torturing people. If we try to introduce a religion, in time to come, when man gets freedom, man will kick out all these religions. Albert Einstein mentioned in his autobiography. Today, scientific education is spreading all over the world. People have realized a lot of weaknesses, loopholes, superstitious ideas in all those existing religions. But in time to come, according to our scientific education, if religion is needed, only Buddhism can remain. He was not a Buddhist. They know how to appreciate the truth and freedom. Now this is the opinion given by the intellectuals.